We're recording? We're good?
Good to go.
All right, we are here with my good friend, proud to say my good friend, Mr. Roger Wendel. Again, we are hosting the show today at the Wendel Museum of Animal Conservation. Thank you, Roger, for letting us film these few podcasts here. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good.
Are you nervous?
Not a bit.
Good. So I'm just going to get right into it. I have a question for you.
Okay.
And it's a business question. You have dental hygienists and you have dentists. You have paralegals and attorneys that work together. You have nurses or PAs and doctors. And in those scenarios, there's a big discrepancy in pay, right?
There is.
Have you ever experienced or know anybody that experienced any resentment from the nurse to the doctor or the paralegal to the attorney? And if so, how do you manage that?
I really haven't experienced that. There is a range of pay for these positions, and those people that go into those positions know what they are. We pay based on experience. Most of my dental hygienists have been with us for years, so they're at the high range of the pay scale. The doctors are in a different boat. You know, the hygienists can't function without a doctor being under them, really. Although in the state of Washington, general hygienists can have their own practice. Realistically, it doesn't happen.
Sure. Kind of like a nurse practitioner can have her own.
Right.
Well, before Ryan gets mad at me, we have this new thing we're doing I forgot to do. So, Roger, I'm going to name off a few things that I think you are, and you tell me what I'm missing. Dentist.
Yes.
Businessman.
Yes.
Wildlife conservationist.
Yes.
Avid hunter.
Yes.
Avid fisherman.
Yes.
Grandfather.
Yes.
Father.
Yes.
Husband.
You haven't missed anything. I mean, you about covered it.
Did I cover? What did I miss? Nothing?
Right.
Good.
Without getting into the details. Yeah.
So the reason I asked that question is, it seems when I go to my networking groups and I'm talking with other people, I kind of hear people struggling with that, managers, where they
Right.
might have a well-paid employee working with somebody that is quite a level up in pay, and for the most part it's okay. But what happens when the person in the lower position starts to get upset because, well, I do just as much work, I put in just as many hours, but I'm not making that pay. I guess in a medical field, there's a big education gap, right? Or
Yes and no. There's more of a sense of ownership which drives that. For example, the longer a professional has been with you, the more the expectations are in terms of pay, ownership, etc. Less so with non-contracted people like dental assistants and dental hygienists and non-professional people.
gotcha.
Yeah.
In the way a dentist practice works, and I'm not super knowledgeable on this, but it almost seems like some of the dentists may be running a business within a business, like they're running their book of business or their practice under the dentist practice. Is that kind of accurate?
I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. We run our practice as a practice. There's no subsidiaries. Is that what you're asking?
Well, like let's say I go to a doctor's office where there's 4 doctors.
Right.
I see one doctor, right?
Right.
I have my preferred doctor. But am I part of his book of business? Does that make sense?
Okay.
So, because I'm his patient, right?
Correct.
Does a dentist or a doctor look at it as these are my patients, this is my book of business, or the people I take care of, or is it all kind of under the umbrella of one office, or is it all each office run differently?
Well, it's both. And it's pretty much driven by the patients. You know, if they have a patient has a certain preference, they will say that. If they don't, they will take a dentist who's available. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And not necessarily in your practice, but let's say it's a doctor's office. Are the physicians normally paid the same whether they have, let's say you and I are doctors together and I have more patients than you?
Well, I don't know about physicians, but our office, yes, there's definitely a difference.
Interesting.
For
So
sure.
if you and I are both dentists and we're working alongside each other, but I'm better at getting new patients, then my compensation will reflect that.
Well, your compensation will reflect it in how much you're able to produce. So if you're a person that is loved by everybody, you're going to have a ton of patients. If you're not, you probably won't have, unless you have a special talent, which is unique to your profession. And we've had that situation occur, where the dentist himself is not particularly a amiable person, but he has the technical skills and ability.
Gotcha.
And his skills are just called upon a lot.
Right.
So millennials is a big topic right now.
Yes.
Are you seeing that with your practices? Are you seeing a difference in work ethic or the type of employees that are in that millennial age range?
If I haven't noticed it. Most of the professionals that have applied for me have been out of school and very ambitious. They want to move forward.
See, I feel kind of bad for the millennials because they all get lumped into this one category of people that are entitled, that live in their parents' house till they're 25 years old
Yeah.
and don't want to go out and be ambitious. But I know a lot of millennials that are over the top ambitious and have a very hard work ethic. And maybe it's because you're in the medical field, you see a different caliber of millennial.
Well, yeah,
come across.
because we've got guys who've gone through college and they've gone through dental school, and these guys want to make something of themselves. They made that decision a long time ago. They're not sitting on their parents' wallets, so to speak.
And do you, let's say you're a millennial now, and you're going to go to college, then your ambition is to get into dental school.
Right.
Is that a different experience now than it was when you did it?
I think the mindset's the same. You want to make it on your own,
The charger's in the REI laptop bag.
and you have the ambition to do so. And it usually comes from within. It doesn't come from your parents, and it doesn't come from your friends. It comes from you.
So when you graduated high school, what did you know that you wanted to become a dentist?
Absolutely.
And when did you come to that realization? Was it a meeting with a counselor or?
No, I just sort of wanted to be in the medical field, and I really focused on dentistry. And it's been a long time, so I don't exactly remember why, but I did, and I followed through with that all through college and got into dental school. Applied to 4 dental schools, got into all of them. I chose University of Pennsylvania because it was an Ivy League school, had a great reputation. That's why I went there.
What were your 4 schools? What were the 4 schools that?
University of Buffalo, University of Pittsburgh. The last one escapes me.
All East Coast, though.
Yeah, all East Coast.
What did you think of University of Pennsylvania?
University of Pennsylvania had a great reputation for high-quality clinicians. The father of root canal therapy, Louis Grossman, was a professor there. Walter Cohen, who was the father of periodontology, was a professor there. It just seemed like the place to go.
You know, that's where my sister graduated.
Is that right?
In downtown Philadelphia, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What an awesome place to go to college,
Yeah.
as far as being in a big city like that.
It was a great experience.
And founded by Benjamin Franklin, right? Mm-hmm. And Ryan, you walk around the campus, and some of the buildings are made out of stone, and you just feel like it's been there forever.
It has been.
Yeah.
There, cobblestone streets and pretty cool.
Very cool. So,
Yeah.
My sister recently graduated from there a few years ago, and the culture on that campus seems nothing like the culture of college campuses when you turn on the news at night. Was it that way when you were there? Because when did you graduate from University of Pennsylvania?
Oh, no, 69. We didn't have the multitude of cultural defects that we have now.
Yeah.
We just didn't have it then.
Was there a lot of protesting over
No,
Vietnam or
nothing.
anything like that
Nothing.
there?
Nothing happened like that.
Why do you think that
And
is?
I was at the height of the Vietnam War era.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything like that there. The students were pretty much driven by their personal desires to move forward.
So when I told you that I was doing this podcast, and I said, Roger, can I film my podcast in your museum? And you asked me what it was about, and I said it's kind of success stories, and I want to hear about failures. And you said everyone wants to hear about your success stories, but nobody wants to hear about failures. And for every one success you have 100 failures.
Well, it's pretty close. I don't think it's quite that bad, but it's true. I've been pretty successful in dentistry because I understand the field. I've tried to move with the way the economy has worked and so on and so forth. So we've been okay doing that. I guess the bottom line is you have to know what you don't know. And if you want to move into a field you don't know about, you have to find people that do, and that people are successful doing it. And I believe that's what I've done. I'm not a real estate expert, but I'm involved in real estate. Am I a broker? No. I'm a contractor? No. Do I understand the field? Yes. So if I'm going to make an investment in real estate, it's going to be with somebody I really knows the market and knows how to do things.
So Ryan and I both go to a lot of motivational seminars, a lot of personal development's a big focus on ours for the last 5 years. And that's kind of what motivated us to this podcast. And were you ever, with a lot of times you hear, don't be afraid of failure. Failure makes you stronger. You have to embrace it.
Yeah.
Did are there some parts of your career or life in general where you were faced with an idea or a risk you were going to take, and fear was definitely in the forefront where it made you think about it?
I think sometimes you're better off with what you don't do than what you do. And as you take a look at the realities of the situation that you're in, you need to make a determination about, hey, is this reasonable or not? And what's this going to cost? And take a look at the economic value and so on and so forth. Where are we going to end it? That's even a bigger question. If we get in, how do we get out? And I think that's even a bigger question. Yeah, I always, when I think about business opportunities, so to speak, and there are many, you really have to take a close look at where that's going. And you can't be afraid of it, but you can't just jump in either. It could cost you a lot of money.
Sure. And your reputation.
That too.
You just, Clark County just celebrated 45 years of community involvement.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
How did that feel?
I never even really thought about it, to tell you the truth. I've always been here, and so I was actually surprised when the Chamber of Commerce came up, and there we were. I came floating in from a fishing trip, and luckily I changed my clothes, and all of a sudden, here are these people in red jackets, and here I am in my black shirt. Thank God I had that on, and congratulating me for the 45 years. And I really never even thought about it. It was just kind of a flow that we've always had. When I do something, I stick to it,
No more.
and I really look at it as an all-inclusive, long-term involvement. I don't look at business involvements as something being short-term. And so I really never even gave a thought to the fact it was 45 years.
I think that says a lot about your reputation, though. Have you
hope
always
so.
been conscious about your reputation?
Yes, I feel I don't know. I haven't been conscious about it. I just feel that if you do the right thing, it all falls into place.
Sure.
That's sort of how I feel about it. I mean, am I conscious about it? If I was conscious about it, I'd go, what am I doing wrong? Right? So I really haven't thought about it much. I mean, I feel if I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing the right things for the populace that comes to me, that's as good as it gets.
So instead of being focused on your reputation, you just focused on being the best person you could be.
Taking care of the people that come to us, yes.
I have a tendency to get too wrapped up in my reputation, and Ryan reminds me of that once in a while. Everything okay over there, Ryan?
Yeah. I just had a question for Roger.
Yeah.
When you're talking about thinking about things or not thinking about things, do you have times in your life where, we're sitting here in this beautiful animal museum, that you've amassed through the last 30 plus years of hunting.
Right.
You have a beautiful home that overlooks the river. When you're here or in your museum or when you're on a fishing trip or something, do you have moments where you just kind of just think, I've done this, I've made this for myself or the people that I've surrounded myself with? Do you have those moments that just kind of give you goosebumps where you can just really take in what you've accomplished in life?
Well, no, what gives me goosebumps is being around the people that I enjoy. And yeah, I've had since I've been a teenager, I've loved hunting and fishing and outdoor stuff, if you will. But really gives me goosebumps is to be around people I enjoy. Being out there on the river, in a boat, having conversation, enjoying nature, whether it rains, shines, blows, doesn't matter. To me, that's what's enjoyable. I guess that's
It's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to look at it. If I was looking at counting the number of ducks or fish that I catch, I mean, it would be a game of statistics. I'm not interested in that.
I'm going to polarize myself right now. Polarize the show. Is that okay, Ryan?
Yeah.
So I was recently at a country club. And I don't want to say that there's a stereotype of country club people, but
There is.
I left there going, man, Roger's one of the nicest guys I know. And from a financial success level, a lot of those people that were there that night probably aren't even in the same realm. And so, I mean, I was trying to figure out what makes Roger different. I mean, I wonder if I became as successful, hopefully someday I do, as well as you, how do I stay true to myself? How do I not fall into that ego, flashing money, being mean to people maybe that aren't in the same position? Because for a long time, Roger, I was always like, I wonder why Roger's friends with me. Like, why does he take me fishing and stuff? Because I'm not super successful. I'm young. I'm early in my career. I don't have all these things that are status symbols. Does that make sense?
Cares? Are we off?
No, that's
You
no.
can
It's,
see- it's the internet. You can say whatever you want,
Okay.
which is why Dirk hasn't been on the show yet.
I mean, look at the people I associate with. I mean, I have always felt that I can get along with almost anybody.
It's very true.
Yeah. And the people that like doing the things that I like to do, we have common interests. I don't care what their economic background is. I don't give a shit. Okay? And it doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter. As long as we enjoy the same things and we're getting along with each other, that's all I care about.
Well, I've learned a ton from you. I mean, fishing and hunting, more so fishing than hunting, but just a lot about business practices and kind of what you've done. And, I listen to you on the phone sometimes, and I take away a lot from every time we spend together.
Interesting you would say that.
Because Ryan and I are both still young in our career, still trying to hit big goals. And we're fortunate we work together because we both are like-minded in that way, which is why we're doing this today.
Right, I gotcha. Yeah.
So,
I want to touch real quick on his answer about just being there with the people. And I'm a hunter, and that honestly is, to me, is the biggest part of it. You're out on a hunt for 7-10 days. You're not always going to be successful, but you're always going to remember the experiences. There's going to be highs.
Exactly.
There's certainly going to be lows.
Right.
But at the end of the trip, like every year I get to go hunting with my dad. That's stuff for the memory bank, that successful or not, we had some good laughs, some just good times.
And it's interesting, even with my employees, the ones that are sort of closest to me because they're administrative, they're my friends. I don't look at them as employees. I mean, they're my friends. And they can come to me with personal matters as long as they're not too personal. And we can discuss them. And we do. And that solidifies the group. It really does. Now, it's saying that it's pretty hard to do a huge corporation, but with a smaller operation like mine is, I guess you would call it mine is, it's very possible to do that. So, and that's kind of solidifies your goals. And, we have goal planning and so on and so forth. But for the most part, we sort of know where we're going.
is that because of the seniority of your staff?
Well, my administrators, there's not one that has been with me less than about 17 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, they sort of know where we're going. We do make some mistakes. We're going to. We don't always, if you look forward into the future, nobody predicts the future. Nobody. I guess stock market investors know that. You make your best decisions. And I think one of the big mistakes that people in business make is getting too far in debt. That will kill you. I don't know, in some situations, there's no way around it. You have to, but...
So, as a business owner, when you're making decisions like that, are you surrounding yourself with people that are advisors or people that kind of help you make those decisions? Or when you were younger even, did you have mentors or people that kind of helped hold you accountable or kept you on track?
Yes and no. I can't tell you I really had that. I've always been an entrepreneur, and sometimes people had to reel me in a little bit, if that's what you mean. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when you're out of dental school, I know there's a lot of business classes, business education involved in there, but when you're making decisions about managing the company's debt and making decisions like that, did you have outside sources that helped you make those decisions, or did you just kind of learn as you go?
I made them myself.
One of the questions, or one of the things we talk about a lot on this show, is accountability, right? And I'm the type of person that requires lots of accountability, and I set that up myself.
Right.
So, from I have a friend outside of my company in the same industry where we talk every Friday.
Right.
And if there's something I'm struggling with, then I'll say, hey, next week ask me how I'm doing about this, right?
Gotcha.
Or if I'm struggling with a decision we're making, or if I find myself lacking in one aspect of my performance, I have him ask me the next week. So let's say I want to do an event. I want to do 3 events that week. And so I'll say, I want to do this 3 times next week. Will you hold me accountable to that? Or I want to get up and work out 1 hour every day.
Right.
And I have little things I do to set myself accountable. But one trend I'm finding, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, is most people that have achieved a high level of success, when I ask that question, they kind of say, well, I've never really thought about it. I'm kind of a self-accountable person.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah. I would agree with that. You know, the buck stops here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But on the other hand, if you hire the right people, give them the right direction, they're going to fulfill your expectations. Do you hold them accountable every minute? No, you don't. How we doing? You know, let's talk about it. Have a meeting once a month or whatever, and see where we're going. Do we need to tweak this or tweak that or whatever? And we've done that. I mean, I'm also involved in retirement communities, and our operating people, I let them do their thing. We watch what they do because we get spreadsheets, we get this, we get that, all the numbers and so forth, okay? Until I see a trend, which I hope they see too, one way or the other, I'm not too concerned about it.
so you just kind of let them go.
But it's exactly. We watch what they do, but we let them do what they know what to do. And I believe in my heart of hearts that we have very good people here.
It's,
And that hasn't always been the case. We struggled with this for 12 years before we got the right people. So, you know, you have to be ready to let people go if it doesn't work, particularly if they're in a high management position where they're making decisions that can cost a lot of money.
so do you believe in the hire slowly, fire quickly saying?
Yes and no. I have one of our chief operating officers that is the opposite way. He's fast to hire and slow to fire, and we've had an issue with that. So I think I agree with your stance that we know slow to hire.
This last year I've hired a coach,
Really?
and it's specific to my industry, and he's helping me with my business planning and helping me
Right.
grow my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling with one of our employees. Really, really liked her. Pretty good culture fit, very sweet, very nice to everybody. And he was kept on asking me on our calls, is this a task that this person would be able to handle? And I would say, I don't think so. So after 3 or 4 of those, I finally said, yeah, I'm thinking about letting this person go, but I really don't want to. And then he sent me a really good video by Todd Duncan, who's he runs a program called High Trust Selling.
Okay.
And it's for our industry. He does a big seminar called Sales Mastery every year. The coaching program I'm doing with him, and he sends out these videos all the time. And one of the videos said that as soon as you think you need to let somebody go, you need to let them go. That
Yeah, that's probably right.
and the longer you wait to make that decision, the harder it's going to be and the more damage that person can do and the more revenue or whatever goals you have are going to sacrifice from it.
But I think you got to be careful because sometimes people will make mistakes, and they don't always make mistakes. But if you're somebody in a high management position, you're gonna make mistakes. It's gonna happen. End of story. You know, and you have to take a look and evaluate the good with the bad. It's just really a fireable offense, or isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So I think you need to evaluate that, and I sort of disagree with that statement.
Well, and he when I did let that person go, and we started looking at hiring new people. He goes, okay, let me see your job description. And so I really had to look myself in the mirror and say, did I set that person up for success, right? And so we've recently hired a new person for that position and came up with a very detailed job description that she has. And we have a set way we like her to be organized. We have everything down to how we want her greeting our clients when they walk in. We have all that kind of set
So
out
you have
for
a business platform that you're operating off of,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and and this person has lots of freedom in that position. It's not
Okay.
micromanaged.
So
at
she
all.
understands that platform.
Yeah,
Okay.
where maybe we didn't do a good job of that the first time
Okay.
around. But
I think that's a problem that a lot of business owners make is they don't set the goals and they don't have a platform, a business platform from which they're operating. And with our management company, with our Tegan, we do have that. This is our platform. This is what we can do. This is what we have to do, how we have to do it. And we've turned down business because we realized that this was beyond our scope with the talent that we have right now. And we're better off doing that than accepting business that's beyond our scope at this particular point. They like our platform. We're not geared for it. So you have to make that balance. We turned down, oh gosh, it was six buildings, 600 rooms altogether, or something like that. They loved their platform, and we looked at our ability to perform and said, we can't do this right now. We'd love to have your business, but we can't fulfill the obligations we feel we need to perform based on our current ability to do it. We love the platform, but we're not built into that to take on twice what we're doing right now. And that's one of the problems that businesses face, is that growing too fast is a big problem.
yeah.
Yeah. And that would be a good example.
So I'm excited. I think it's going to be our next podcast. I have two directors coming in, and they're friends outside of work. And one is a director for skilled nursing, and one is a director for assisted living. Both very high level at their job. And in my opinion, we'll find out when they're on, but two 100% different management styles. And I really like the skilled and assisted platforms to talk about business and personal development because of the different levels of management and the different teams that are involved, right?
Right.
Everyone down from the nurses, the CNAs,
Yeah.
all the way up to the nurse managers, and all the way up to the directors and admissions. And so, my wife's in that industry, so we compare notes a lot about management styles and personal development. So I'm really excited to have both of them on to kind of see, because not one management style wins out over another one, but these two individuals have both done very, very well with two completely different styles. So you'll have to listen to that one.
I would like to. That should be interesting. We have some different styles as well. If you're an operations person, you're going to be looking at detail. If you're a big picture person, you're not going to be looking at detail. So you have two literally different management styles, if you look at it. And you have to take a look at where they cross. Do you have the right number of forks and spoons and knives, or is it more important that you look like you do? You see what I'm saying?
I think so.
Yeah. So and at the end of the day, it's performance, and it's your clients that drive what you do. And once you lose sight of that, then you're lost. Particularly if you're in the service business, which we are. Medical, pretty much all the way. Yeah. But even if you're in a subway business, I don't mean to use that
Like
as
Subway
a cliche,
sandwiches?
but it's if you're selling sandwiches, you're still in the service business. You know, what business model works here for the client walking through the door? How do they perceive how you are? It's huge in the medical business, huge. Particularly in businesses where it's not a necessity. If you have a heart attack, it's a necessity. You got a toothache, it's probably a necessity.
It's more emotional too, right?
Yeah, if you go into the dentist because your wife took you by the ear and drug you in there, that's not a necessity. And so your perception of how you're treated is entirely different.
Do you think that with that in mind, in the medical field, with a non-necessity need, are those clients or patients more likely to have a wall up because they feel like they're being sold something they don't need?
I don't really think so. I don't think so. I know that with the internists and the family practitioners, they're going to push for tests so that they can be sure that certain things aren't a problem.
Sure.
And I think that could be perceived by the patient as being over the top. In my field, in the dental field, it sort of is what it is. It's not that difficult. So here's what I see. This is what I think we can do. You think it over. For the most part, our profession is elective. You're not gonna necessarily die from a dental infection. You might from a heart attack. No.
Or bad breath. Or bad breath. I could die from some people's bad breath.
Bad breath
Yeah.
will kill you off.
Yeah.
You may be socially inept. It may affect your entire life. You may wind up in a room by yourself.
It's like really bad acne that you don't know you have.
It's called halitosis, right?
So, Roger, we're sitting in one of the most amazing, not necessarily wildlife museums, but one of the most amazing museums I've ever been in. And I've known you for a long time. I knew you before you had that room.
Right.
And I never wanted to bother you with a million questions. Because I'm sure everybody asks Roger, what's his favorite animal? How long did it take you? Tell me about this one. So I've never talked to you about it because I figured if you wanted to talk about it, you had brought it up. But now that I got you on the podcast, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. And Ryan probably has more than I do. Is that okay?
All right. No problem.
So what in the hell motivated you to build this?
Okay. When I was a teenager, trophy rooms were a big deal. Hunting, big game hunting was a big deal. Jack O'Connor,
Oh, yeah.
all these people. And I'm going like, at some point in time, this is where we want to be. And my parents were not outdoors people at all. And I had to literally convince them to say, look, take a look around you. Look what's out here. I grew up in suburbia. I didn't have access to wild stuff unless somebody took me to it, right? And we finally moved to a house on a dirt road that had a flooded pit gravel place that had small bass and sunfish and carp and all that stuff in it. So, I mean, it was so close I could walk down the road and do it. and fish. And they could have cared less. I mean, that was where it all started, you know. And I guess maybe it started before that, but I don't know where it came from. It just was in me somewhere. And I decided when I was a teenager, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hunt out all over the world, and I'm going to be an advocate for conservation. And so far, that's what I've done.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to start collecting taxidermy?
Well, I'd say back then probably, but didn't have the means to do it. And it was part of it was my adventurous nature, so to speak, just to get out there and do stuff and be involved and go camping and hiking and sleep in a tent that's halfway down the mountain and that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's hard to explain. I really don't believe that I had a motivation to just start collecting stuff. It just sort of happened, you know.
What was your, in this museum, do you know which animal was your first animal?
Yeah, my first animal. Yeah, I probably do. It was probably that doll sheep that's sitting behind you or to your left.
No way. That was your first one?
Yeah,
How long ago was that?
1986 or 7.
Let me, I'm gonna just adjust the camera real quick to flash up to that guy real quick.
We had some fancy plans to take some pictures ahead of time. If people want to see pictures of this, they can go to your website, correct?
Yes,
And what's that website?
it's Wendel Museum of Animal Conservation.com.
Okay. And Roger has lots of pictures of the museum there. But, that's wild that was your first.
Yeah,
I would thought you were going to say like a
One of
black-tailed
the,
deer.
or yeah, one of the deer in here or something.
I really wasn't involved in big game hunting until about that time. And I did some big game hunting. Mostly it was bird hunting. Yeah.
What,
I really hadn't hunted much big game at that point. I mean, part of it was I was busy working. I didn't have time. Yeah, I shot some small deer and stuff like that, but it wasn't, you know, for as far as making a effort to do some serious collection, I didn't.
When your collection got to a certain size, did you start to look at this and go, we could probably use this for conservation purposes?
Yeah, because my feeling is that people really don't understand that hunting seems like a contradiction, but hunting preserves animals.
well, hunters give, I mean, the fees
Yeah,
and whatnot
exactly.
we pay, it grows wildlife.
Preservation animals, people die. Okay, they get born and they die. So we're not trying to preserve the animals as much as we are preserving the habitat
Absolutely.
for these animals,
Absolutely.
which allows them to have their life cycle. Does that make sense?
Well, elk were nearly extinct there for a while
And
in North
so-
America.
And so you take a look at foundations like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Ducks Unlimited. What they have been impressing is the preservation or conservation of habitat, much more so than conservation of the actual animals.
Well, Pheasants Forever,
Yeah.
their mission statement
Same
is a
deal.
habitat organization.
Oh, totally. And any organization that's worth its salt is looking to preserve that. And I think as a sort of conservationist, we need to take a look at other countries which have an abundance of animals, is how they're going to preserve the habitat and keep their populations.
And keep them public.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Because I don't think people realize how much land we own here. It's ours, right? You go to England. How much public land hunting do they have there?
None, or very little.
Very little, right?
Yeah.
And it's all paid hunting and private land. And I don't think people, I didn't realize that until I got into hunting and conservation, that just how much public lands there are. And we have some awesome hunting shows in this country. One we like is called The Meat Eater. Have you ever seen that one with Steven Ranella?
Yeah, I know the guy.
He's a true badass, and most all of his hunts are public land hunting. And I think it's the most realistic hunting show. I would say his success rate on his show is 25%.
Well, it's probably higher than that, but it's his show is not filmed directly based on, killing an animal or harvesting an animal. It's about the hunt itself, and
A lot about the habitat, a lot about
yeah,
biology.
I mean, he's a super knowledgeable guy.
It's about the biology. and-
Exactly.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly where it should be, to tell you the truth. Yeah. So
So that's one question I had. A lot of animals in here, a lot of hunts you've went on. I've hunted elk since I was about trying to think the first year my dad took me. I was in my teens, but you don't get one every year.
you don't.
Not even close. And so what have you been on some big exotic hunts where you put in a lot of hard effort and work and money and it just doesn't pan out?
145 days before I shot a stone sheep.
145
Are you picking
days.
him up
45 days.
45 days.
Yeah.
before you got a stone sheep?
Yeah.
In one
4 different
consecutive,
hunts.
4 different hunts. And where were those hunts at?
Northern British Columbia, southern Yukon.
So what's it like walking away from a hunt like that?
You know,
'Cause it's not an inexpensive.
no,
Ordeal.
it's not, and it's a lot more expensive now.
Yeah.
I think you have to go into it with the idea that it's hunting, and you're going to have the plus and you're going to have the minuses. So it is what it is. You pay your money.
But when you walk away, are you disappointed?
I used to be at one point in time, but I'm not anymore. I understand if I go to a certain area to hunt a certain animal, I might be successful and I might not be. That's called hunting.
Yeah.
What's important is the experience.
So speaking of experiences, I've been trying to hold back the excitement for the trip that you invited me on, because it's not for
Oh, for a Jurassic Lake?
it's not for 16 months.
Yeah, no, it'll be a while.
So let's talk about Jurassic Lake.
Go ahead. I'll be happy to talk about it.
So Jurassic Lake is located in Patagonia,
Yes, southern Patagonia.
and it's a lake that you can test me here. See how knowledgeable.
It's Lago Strobel.
Lago Strobel is the name of the lake. The
Yeah.
Jurassic Lake's the nickname.
It's sort of the nickname, the name of the lodge.
And a couple guys found it in the late 80s. and it was
Yeah.
planted with.
Yeah, it was rainbow trout that trickled down into that lake.
So what they weren't transplanted. I thought they were from like a California strain.
I don't know where they came from, but they were all trout in Argentina has been planted at some point in time. Yes.
If you want, Ryan, you can you can duplicate that screen so you can do screen capture if you want. If you want to pull up pictures, if you can pull up the website, you might recognize somebody that's on the website. So there's no predators for these fish,
No.
and these fish got massive.
Well, the lake doesn't have any minnows or anything they're scuds, and they're very small bugs that they eat. There's 4 or 5 different kinds in there, and very prolific. And so that's what they feed on. So they don't have any natural predators.
So how big a trout are we talking?
Well, we got them up to 22, 23 pounds. The average is probably 6 to 12 pounds.
I think it's well, there's a map of it. Go back.
You want me to?
Yeah, go back to your initial search there. And
Look, if you look at the pictures of these fish, they're very deep. They're like sort of what we call footballs.
fat,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I think it's the
Uh-oh.
I think it's a Jurassic yeah, try that one. Yeah, I think this is it. This is the guide service, right? Does this look right? Oh, that's
Yep.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So scroll down. So there's some pictures of them. And when we fly into this place, am I going to feel like we're out in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah. You will.
Because you used to have to fly in. Where do we fly into? The main city in
I can't
Virginia?
remember the little city that was there on the Atlantic coast. And then we'd pick up
Look at that guy.
a charter flight from there. It used to be you have to drive into it. 13 hours.
Did you do that? Did you
No,
do that?
we flew. That's the way to go. You lose a day both ways, otherwise.
Well, I'm stoked. I'm excited not only for the trip, but to get to go with you and some of our other friends.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a great time, and this you can fish as much as you want to.
And we're fly fishing, right?
Yeah, we're fly fishing. When I went there, I probably had a high of maybe 60 fish a day. Some guys had 250 fish
Jeez.
a day,
Yeah.
just because they fished all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's the best rainbow trout fishing on the planet, without a doubt, bar none. Period.
So this is a museum, private museum.
Yes,
You host lots of events here.
we do.
You've allowed me to host a ton of events here. We even had my wife's baby shower here, which my parents still won't let me forget. That was a great party, though. But have you ever run into? I guess every time I have a large event here, there's somebody that is taken way back by this, and they have a emotional reaction that's not a positive one.
Really?
I think you would do that with any sort of tactic.
Yeah, usually
So-
you can overcome that.
So how do you overcome that with somebody?
We talked to them about what the conservation efforts, about the difference between conservation and preservation.
So can we talk about a specific animal in here?
Name one.
The elephant back there. How do you explain to somebody that isn't a hunter, that doesn't know a lot about conservation, why it's okay to go hunt elephants in Africa?
The main reason is because the money that comes from hunting elephants goes into conservation efforts to preserve the habitat that they need to survive.
So in the parts of Africa where there's legal hunting for elephants, has the populations improved over the years?
Well, yeah, it has. There's a lot of elephants. There's not a lot of habitat. Figure it out. I mean, an elephant's a huge animal, and they require a lot of food and a lot of water. And sometimes the two are miles and miles apart. So where is the effort to conserve their habitat?
What kind of organizations do the different countries in Africa have that are about habitat preservation? I mean, I guess my point is it like it is here?
Well, I think you've asked about three different questions, but one is that you're looking at an economic situation in Africa which is different than here. Okay, people in Africa are looking at their own self-preservation, and so if you can provide them money to show them that they can make conservation efforts to preserve the big game, their economic situation, for example, money coming in from professional hunting will increase, and it has, and that's particularly true in Zimbabwe. The money that comes in from professional hunting, a lot of that goes into the communities. It has stemmed poaching efforts and so on and so forth, to the point where poachers are now considered criminals, where before they were collectors and giving them back to the family. Okay, so
How bad is poaching in Zimbabwe?
right now I don't know. I know in West Africa it's really bad. It has been for a long time. They'll sell the meat, the pig meat, for example, will sell the meat to the wood companies, the lumberers in there, for a fantastic price because they can't get meat to come in there. So they kill the dikers and they them to the lumber companies, okay? So that's still a problem. Still, and plus the overharvest of hardwood trees is still a problem there. That may not resolve itself in a long time. I don't know. But as far as elephants are concerned, their habitat has been reduced. Any way you can increase that, no, and so any way you can increase the habitat preservation will go a long way to preserve the population of the animals. This has not happened because of the introduction of agriculture into the areas that the elephant live in. So the elephants are now faced with harvesting what they need to eat out of the farmers' fields. You have a conflict here.
Yeah, right away.
Yeah.
So there's some organizations in our country that work towards conservation in other countries, correct?
That's correct.
The one that we go to every couple of years or every year.
Safari Club International, yes.
Safari Club International. And how you've been a member, lifetime member with them, right, for a long time?
Yes.
And how big of an impact do they have? Because when I go there, it seems like a lot of money is being raised.
They raise a lot of money, and they're involved in the political structure of determination of harvestability of animals in various countries.
Because it seems like, especially in Zimbabwe and countries in Africa, that's where the habitat conservation has to start, is with a lot of the political aspects, right?
Absolutely.
Like poaching.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and it's still a big problem. I mean, it was when I started hunting there, and it still is.
switch gears a little bit. For the people that are listening to this show that aren't knowledgeable about hunting, explain high wire, high fence, not high wire. This isn't a circus. High fence,
yeah,
high
okay.
fence hunting.
You're talking about hunting that's done within a confined area, and that runs a gamut of circling in a population so they can't leave, to breeding a population that's in a confined area. And a lot of that's evident in South Africa, for example, and there's a lot of species there that would not exist today would that not be the case. And we're not talking about 50 square feet. We're talking about thousands of acres.
What are some? Can you give an example of a species?
Yeah, the white rhino would be a good example.
Yeah.
Huge example of that. Black wildebeest would be another one. Red lechwe would be another one. I could go on. It's those animals would not exist if it were not for those efforts.
And why is that? Is it because of the high fence? The high fence property is it private land?
Yeah, it's all private land. We're not talking about South Africa. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to make that clear.
Sure.
Okay.
'Cause that's different than high fence in Texas.
Yeah, high fence in Texas is sort of the same thing. You know, Texas land is not known by acres; it's known by square miles. So, yeah, it's sort of the same thing. But there's I can well, I'm trying to think. There's nilgai. There's certain types of oryx that would not exist today if it weren't for those. Pure David deer is a really good example. Pure David deer came out of China. Pure David was a priest, David, okay, back in the 1600s. And he went to China and he saw these deer being killed for their meat and saw that they were not going to survive, that they would be wiped out. So he took 12 of them, he transported them to England. And they developed a population of pure David deer there. And so it was the only population because they wiped out the population of India. And then eventually they were transported to various other places, one being Argentina, where the only free-ranging population of pure David deer exists today.
Wow.
What part of Argentina? What region?
Patagonia out of Bariloche.
So you think we might see some on our trip? You think we might see some on our trip?
Well, no, because we're going to be way south of that.
Dang it.
Yeah, dang it. Yeah. But that's the only place that free range.
And you have a pure David
I
deer
do,
here.
yeah.
And where was that harvested?
Right over here next to the alligators.
I know. I know. Where did you Where did you hunt that?
Argentina.
In Argentina.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
how
that's
about-
a good example of how that works. This species would not exist today were it not for that effort.
So
300 years ago.
wow, I didn't, 300 years.
Yeah.
Before Ryan jumps in here, because I know he's chomping at the bit,
No.
he's got lots of questions he's been asking me all week. Back to high fence hunting,
Yes.
because that's a very hot topic right now in the hunting community.
Right.
So, if I understand you correctly, that high fence hunting has directly impacted animal conservation with certain species. and
No,
certain
like I described before, yeah. So your point is that this is a discriminatory issue with certain populations.
Yeah, my point is there's a lot of opinions on it, and I don't fully understand. I know that if I'm going to go to SCI, I'm going to book a trip to Africa. I don't necessarily want to book a high fence hunt trip. I want
I
to book
don't disagree with that.
I want to hunt wild animals in a
Right.
wild place.
Right.
I don't want to have my kudu picked out for me.
All right,
Right.
but in the other sense, I mean, we did a high fence, quote unquote, hunt in southern Zimbabwe in 2005 or something like that. Now, if you want to consider 3 million acres a high fence hunt, go ahead. That's not a high fence hunt, in my opinion. What that's doing is keeping the poachers out.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So, is there two forms of high fence hunting? Then?
Yeah, I think you can take it down to releasing a predator in a 50-acre or less space, and that's high fence hunting.
Well,
At the other extreme, okay? That's not fair, in my opinion, and I don't like that.
same with a lot of deer in our country, right? There's high fence hunting for deer in our country where they have these genetically
There's genetic
bred
yes.
monster
There
deer.
is. They're big. They're genetically. They're the big buck deer are. There's a $250,000 price on their head, and they're breeding like crazy, and they make all these crazy looking deer. I don't like that. Is what it is. I just don't.
Yeah.
I'll never hunt one of those, and it's what it is.
I've always wanted to ask that question, but I didn't want to offend you.
Yeah, you're not offending me. I'm just saying this. I'm just quoting my opinion. I don't care for that.
Yeah, I don't care for
But
it
there are
either.
people that like that, and in that regard, I don't see anything wrong with that. These deer are being raised like cattle to be harvested. Would I want to do it? No.
Yeah. I think that that is really important because everything in here is a trophy, but it's a wild trophy.
Yes.
And I think there's a
everything
big
here
difference.
has been harvested in wild conditions.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's with a success rate that think a lot of people don't understand that are not hunters, right? What would you say if you had to give an average success rate of all your hunts? What do you
20%.
think? 20%. That's lower than I would have said, and my number was low.
And there's a lot of animals in here. That's a lot of days spent in the field. I mean,
A lot of days.
A lot of miserable
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah. A lot of times, a lot of unsuccessful hunts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they meaningful? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you pick out a favorite hunt?
Oh, wow.
I know that's got to be a tough one.
I ask it, I get asked this question a lot, and they're all so different. I would say if I were to pick out one, it would be my first trip to Africa in the Langba Valley in Zambia, because there were so many.
And that's southern Africa, right? South Africa?
Zambia.
Zambia is?
Yeah, it's it's north of, just north of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
It used to be Rhodesia, and they divided it into Zambia and Zimbabwe. Yeah. But, and the only reason for saying that would be that it was one of my first experiences. It was my first experience in Africa, and such a diversity of animals, and it was cute. It was really great experience. I love mountain hunting, all sheep hunting. Totally different experience. A lot of patience, a lot of waiting, a lot of glassing,
A lot of hiking.
a lot of climbing. Yeah. So that's a totally different experience. So to pin myself on one thing,
Yeah.
be tough.
It's tough.
But if I were going to say, that would be maybe the coolest experience I've experienced. That first hunt was, and I've been to Africa several times since then, and it was nothing like that. So it's just a great experience.
So these hunts, I know they're very demanding physically.
Can be.
So going through, your teenage years and whatnot, were you always physically active?
Yeah, I was a wrestler in high school and college,
and so you kept up the training in order
I
to be
was
in
always
shape.
physically active. So yeah, I mean, particularly mountain hunting. But people ask me what the most difficult hunts are. What do you think they are?
Turkey.
No.
Nada. You're close though. There's the bird.
What about don't tell me, the chukar
Chucker
in
hunting.
Alaska. The ones that
There's
the
no,
ones
they
that
don't have
roost in
chucker
trees.
They don't have chuckers in Alaska, but chucker hunting is right here.
Here.
Yeah.
Steve Vernella, on his latest episode of the podcast, he does hunt chukar. No, not chukar,
they're-
grouse.
Yeah, the
Grouse.
sooty
Ptarmigan.
the sooty
No.
the sooty grouse, and
Sooty
there's up in Alaska, like southeast Alaska, like out of
Oh,
Juneau.
maybe Southeast, yeah.
But they
the toughest hunt you'll ever do is chucker hunt here.
Yeah, especially
I'll
if you
take
go,
you over to Grand Run and hunt you 3 days, and you'll sleep for 4 days.
Yeah. 'Kay, I went chukar hunting with Dirk,
Yeah.
and we'll eventually have Dirk on, but Dirk's a crazy man.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'll tell a really quick story about myself. This hunting story is anything like your hunting stories, but he wanted to go chukar hunting, and so he said, "Meet me at like Biggs Junction or something, or meet me in Hermiston."
Yeah.
So I wake up at 3, I hit the road, and I'm just having like pain in my kidneys. And so I stop and get a water and a Rock Star, and I get to about Troutdale. And I'm just nauseous, and my sides killing me, and I'm sweating. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. And then I pull over at Cascade Locks, and I'm like, fuck, I need to go to the hospital. And so I pull up my phone, and I can go back to Gresham, or I can go to Hood River. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Hood River. So I go into Hood River, pull in. At this point, I'm like convulsing, bent over, and they get me right in. I'm throwing up all over the place. So they give me morphine, calm me down, and had a 10 millimeter kidney stone. And so they gave me the morphine, and I felt great, took a little nap. And then they came and the nurse had a syringe. She's like, we're going to give you some more painkillers. And I said, well, what is that? She goes, it's Dilaudid. And I said, if I take that, am I going to be able to drive? She goes, no, your wife's going to have to come pick you up. And I said, I don't want it. I feel fine. So then an hour and a half goes by. Meanwhile, Wilbur is in my truck tearing it apart because he's been in there for like 3 hours. And I didn't even think to put him in the kennel in the back. I was in so much pain, I just left him in the truck. And so I felt great. And I'm like, I'm going to go chukar hunting. And the nurse goes, oh, you're going chukar hunting. She's like, if you get some, bring one by. I love chukar. So I said, okay, you got it. And so I felt like $1 million. I just felt great. I felt rested.
You should have had to lie die louder. You would have felt a lot better.
I wouldn't have been going chukar hunting. And so I called Dirk, and I'm like, I'm coming. And I had to stop by the emergency room. And you think Dirk would take it easy on me?
No.
Fuck no. We were going up and down these steep canyons, up and down. And I hadn't done a lot of chukar hunting. Neither had Wilbur. Which bird hunting is my favorite because of the dogs. But Wilbur's so passionate about hunting and so enthusiastic that it scared the crap out of me because he'd catch wind of a bird and start running, and we're on 30-foot, 40-foot cliffs. But he did fine. He scared the crap out of me a couple times, got stuck a couple times. I helped
Couldn't figure out how to get back.
Yeah, he made it work, but of course, after the first quarter mile, Dirk's gone. He's like 3 ridges over. So Wilbur and I hunt out, and I think we got a couple birds, and then I don't know what it was. I think it was. Are there grouse out there?
Yeah, there's some bluegrass.
I think there was some blue grouse. I could barely see something moving on top of the hill. And Wilbur took off, and we're about a mile from the truck. So Wilbur took off, and by the time I climbed all the way up there, he was gone. So I looked for him for like 45 minutes, can't find him. So I go, well, I'm going to go back and get the truck and drive the road. And so I hike all the way back. At this point, I'm dead. I mean, I just had morphine and the kidney stone. I was toast. I could barely walk. And I walk up to my truck, and I look, and there's Wilbur sitting in the shade of my tailgate.
Perfect.
Yeah, so he found we found his way back to the truck. He said, screw Cody, I'm going to go back to the truck.
Perfect.
So we've covered a lot.
Chukar hunting is by far the most physically demanding upland sport that you can think of.
But they're short hunts, though, right? They're like a half a day, 3/4 of a day.
Well, I used to hunt over the Grand Ronde River, and we would hike from the Grand Ronde uphill 2,000 feet and hunt our way back down. And that means you're going laterally across hill, steep hills. It's really difficult terrain.
Well, just so people that
And
don't.
then if you haven't got your limit, you go back up and you do it again.
Well, and for people that don't chuck or hunt, don't know much about hunting, when you say steep, I mean, it's steep where if you slip and
You're
fall,
going
you could
from
die.
roughly
right?
sea level to 2,500 feet, and you're hiking straight uphill.
Yeah, on rocky.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you work your way back down laterally, back and forth in very steep, difficult terrain. And what that means is blisters on your feet, busted, worn out ankles, screwed up knees. And then if you haven't shot what you want to shot, you go back up and you do it again.
And it's not like your dog flushes a chucker and you get to shoot at it. I mean,
You get to shoot at it. It might go down 500 feet below you.
yeah, or maybe you don't even realize what's going on because your dog's one ridge over and you're barely hanging on to the side.
Believe me, I've hunted all over the world. I've done everything. I've sheep hunted, which is considered very difficult hunting. Chucker hunting is the most difficult.
All right, let's talk about extreme climates. Since we're
Sure, I can do that.
can I guess
Which
what?
degree range you want to go into?
So can I pick the most extreme?
Yeah,
Muskox.
you're not extreme enough.
Have a stab, Ryan.
Okay, how about polar bear?
Yeah, I was gonna say the polar bear is my next guess.
So polar bears are part of the Marine Mammal Protection Act, correct?
That's correct.
And when did that go into place?
About 1969, 70, somewhere way back there.
So when did you get your polar bear?
1997.
So how does that work?
They released permits in certain areas in the Arctic that you could hunt them.
Do they still do that, or was that a one-time
No, it's
deal?
gone now. It was a three-year window, and it's over now.
And was it a lottery system? I mean, it seems
No,
like everybody.
no lottery. It was that 3-year window, and those certain areas where they determined the population was right. To apply for a permit, you had to put $1,000 in to research in Russia for polar bear populations, believe it or not. And
So hold on a second.
no, hold on, what?
So, so just so people understand, so this was in Russia.
No, we had to give $1,000 for research in Russia. We didn't hunt in Russia. We hunted in Canada.
Why did Russia get money for you
Well,
hunting in Canada?
yeah, good question. I still haven't figured that one out.
It's Trump's fault.
So did they open that? Did they open that hunt up for that 3-year period because there was a population problem?
There was a population they figured they could harvest, yes.
So you can have a species that's endangered, and you can have a certain area where that species is where they're overpopulated.
That's what they, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people don't realize
I'm
that, right?
generally, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just think it's important to understand, especially with some of the African animals here, is people go, oh, that's on the endangered species list, or, oh, why would somebody want to hunt that? Because there are areas where they need hunters to come in,
That's correct.
to preserve the
Yeah, absolutely.
species.
Absolutely. They need to control the populations so they can produce, yeah, exactly.
So how cold was it?
50 below.
Where did you get your muskox?
Well, that was in Northwest Territories. That was only 40 below.
I was only off by 10
It's
degrees.
not a big deal.
Yeah.
Hey,
Now, how about some
have you
hot-
ever tried taking a pee when it's 50 below
Oh my
zero?
Goodness. So how about extreme heat?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the rainforest. I was in southern Cameroon hunting bongo. Oh, that was miserable.
What's
Holy
bongo?
crap. That was terrible.
What's bongo?
Bongo is an antelope. Lives in the rainforest in Africa.
Really? Do you have one here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's freezing. Hanging right over. Full mounted right over there.
You'll have to show me after. Oh, I see it. Yeah. Yeah, little guy.
I'd say the two animals that I think are the most, people go, what? Is the elephant, followed by the giraffe. For whatever reason, people really get...
Giraffe?
Yeah, people really have been
Definitely.
freaked out by the giraffe. I can't
Why?
believe there's a giraffe in here. Just, they just don't understand.
Well, the ass is on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I've had events here where everyone's like, I'm okay with everything but the giraffe. So tell me about giraffe hunting. And when I go to SCI, I don't see a lot of guides for giraffes.
All right, let me just put it this way. Giraffe hunting is not difficult, but it can be.
Okay.
This giraffe, we shot, I don't know, 3 o'clock one afternoon, and followed it for 5-6 hours.
Ooh.
Gave up, came back the next day, followed it again. Finally took it down. The trackers went back to get the skinners. My partner and I skinned half the giraffe out before they get back here, so they couldn't find us. And giraffes they're not necessarily hard to find. They are hard to get up to close and get a good shot. They're not what I would call a difficult animal to hunt. They're difficult animal to harvest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Who was your partner on that hunt?
Mr. Bill Baumgartner.
Oh, God. Can we talk about something I've never asked you about because I didn't feel it was any of my business? But the other partner of yours that helped hunt a lot of these animals in here.
Oh, Jerry Davis.
Yeah. Would
Yeah.
you mind talking about that a little
I
bit?
don't mind.
I've never heard the story.
Jerry died in eastern Siberia, 2001, August 11th, 1 month before 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys were together?
Yes.
And what were you hunting in
We were
Siberia?
hunting a Siberian snow sheep.
Siberia. So do you have one here?
Yes, I do. I actually have two.
Was it?
Two.
Did you get one that trip?
Yeah, but I did, and he died very shortly. I have pictures of him, and he and myself about an hour before he died.
I've seen that picture.
Yeah,
I do know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we harvested the animal, and we were on What happened was that. Going back a little bit, how long you want to go with this?
As long as you want.
Okay. We left Portland, and he told me he was having chest pain, and I'm going like, what kind of chest pain? Well, it's all this stuff, this gastric reflux disease I've got, and this and that, and I said, well, you're telling me this, and we're going to some of the remotest parts of the world anywhere. There is no medical attention. So we get to Moscow, and he's still having issues and this and that, and we fly up to Norilsk to hunt the Siberian snow sheep, Prevlastov snow sheep. And that requires a helicopter trip in to an area which is basically a bunch of plateaus with extremely steep canyons. So you get on one plateau, you're there. You're not going anyplace else, okay? And they're transported by rivers and so forth. Okay, so we get there to Norilsk. He has an issue. He can't can't walk. He's not feeling good. So we sort of do our walk, and he kind of
It's
improves.
related to the chest pain.
Yes. And we get back to our hotel, and he's feeling okay. We fly out a day or two later and land on a plateau. So we have our little Russian entourage, and we're laying out the camp, and we go like, okay, let's just walk up the ridge and see if we see anything. I wasn't even going to take a gun with me. Sure enough, we get up there. Here's these 4 snow sheep in the distance. And so we start to stalk them. And they're obviously shooters. And long story short, we shot 2 of them. Our hunt was done. Done.
That's crazy. It doesn't
Day you
happen
got
like
there.
that.
10 days later, we were still there
Why?
because they couldn't come in to get us because of weather issues and this and that. We were in the Arctic, okay?
What's your camp like for 10 days in the Arctic?
Well, there is a tent camp, okay? We're in a tent camp. And finally, another helicopter came in. There was a guy from California who was he was a pediatric neurologist, and he was Iranian. And so we got to talking, and he flew in at about 9 o'clock at night. And during that 10-day period, Jerry literally never got out of his tent. And I walked that whole plateau. I knew where every sheep in the frickin' area was, okay? I says, you want a sheep? Go over there. Take your helicopter, go over there. Take a look. There's one shooter in there at least. What I suggest you do is shoot that animal, come back here, we'll pack our shit up and get out of here, okay? He does that, goes over, bang, shoots a decent sheep, not as good as the one we got, but nice, okay? Fly back, comes back over, pick up our stuff, fly out. We're flying for a couple hours, I guess, a helicopter. Down he goes in the river valley.
In the helicopter.
In the helicopter. He stopped there and he goes like, yeah, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, but you know, in August it's bright daylight. So we get down there and this guy opens the back of the helicopter up and goes to the back and he gets a couple of fishing rods out. And he goes like, you
So
hunt?
the helicopter went down.
Yes.
I thought you went.
This is the captain of the helicopter. He goes back and grabs his fishing rods and leaves us there, getting eaten by mosquitoes. And you like to hunt? I like to fish. So he goes out and he's throwing spoons and crap in the river there, and collects a couple Arctic char. Comes back and he's dicking around with those Arctic char. And we're getting chewed by mosquitoes. I said, hey, out we go now. Packs us up. We fly back into Norilsk. We land in the helicopter base there. Here comes the military. You have permits to hunt here?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here they are. Not good. Maybe not good. They're signed by the Ministry of and we had what is our equivalent of our Interior Secretary with us. Okay? Everything in Russia is run by the mafia. You have to understand that, okay? This guy shows up, takes our guys, our interpreters and our guys over, and they're starting to interrogate them.
So hold on a second. So they pull who away to interrogate?
They are our interpreters. Okay.
And they're interpreters you hired through the guide service that you were on?
Yeah. So we us and the other guy from Jerry and me and the guy from L.A. Okay. We don't know what the hell's going on. Finally, this limo shows up, a black limo, and this guy gets out, and he's all dressed up in this military uniform. He's probably 35, and he's got a gal sitting next to him. He's blonde. She's all decked out in these furs and shit. And I'm going to tell you, in the Rilsk, there are no paved roads. This vehicle did not have a spot of dirt on it. And behind him was a caravan of about 3 trucks with military guys with machine guns. And as soon as these guys saw these guys arrive, they were like, oh, shit.
So who was he?
The head frickin' mafia guy, okay?
And you're just like, I
And they go
want
like,
to get out of here.
Get out of here. He comes to us and he goes like, you have 3 sheep, $1,000.
Yeah.
And you want to leave? You see those guys there? They shoot you.
No way.
Yeah. So we paid $1,000.
Holy moly.
Good thing you had your wallet on you.
Yeah. Huh?
So good thing you had your wallet on you.
Well, I actually didn't. I
you take
had
cashier's
No,
checks?
I had to go through the banking authorities and that.
You're like, you take a post-dated
Took out
check,
a third
right?
mortgage in my
What
house.
was the exchange rate like? Was it really like $300?
You give us ruples.
What a crazy experience. So you land, mafia shows up. Did you know they were mafia at the time? Were you like right away?
Oh, we sort of figured it out.
Yeah. And they had military like.
Oh, they had
with them.
military guys behind them.
Were they military guys or were they?
And but this gal in this, I mean, she was decked out in furs, blonde gal, and there wasn't a spot of freaking dust anywhere on that vehicle.
And were you at an airport or where?
Yeah,
Like a Russian airport.
yeah.
Wow.
It was a private helicopter pad, okay?
So in
and they were
2000
waiting for us when we came in and to shake us down, okay?
In 2001, Putin was the prime minister at the time, right?
Yeah, so
Because then he left and then he came back.
so what?
I'm just curious. I'm just putting it all together.
Who cares? He didn't have any influence on these guys. We had the what I said was the equivalent of our interior, cabinet guy there with us,
And it still didn't
and he
matter.
goes like,
You're screwed. Pay him the $1,000.
doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Holy moly.
yeah. Who cares? You want to get out of here? You pay us, or we shoot you.
Do you think they would have shot you?
Nah, I don't think so. But we probably wouldn't have got our sheep.
Yeah, they probably would have
Yeah,
taken the sheep
yeah,
and you
exactly.
spent some more
Yeah,
time in
yeah.
Russia trying to
Right,
get out.
right.
That was worth $1,000. 1,000 rubles.
Put you on a plateau.
So, did Jerry pass away on that trip?
Yeah,
Yes, he did.
Finish the story.
But later.
Finish the story.
Finish
I've
the
waited
story.
10 years to hear this story, Ryan. So
You waited 10
I've never.
years.
I knew what happened when I met you in 2006.
No, we
2005.
flew back. We flew back to Moscow, and then back out to the Siberian coast, Ohotsk, O-S-H-O-H-O-K. I can't remember. Ohotsk, and we sat there for 4 days because there was thermal inversion and we couldn't fly out to go. We were hunting Siberian snow sheep. Okay. And the first one I was just explaining to was Putarana snow sheep, different subspecies.
Okay.
Okay. And so we get there, Ohotsk, can't fly out. We're walking around harvesting berries, and Jerry's having a hard time. He's getting around.
Chest pains and
Yeah.
walking again.
I kept on telling him, man, you need to go home. If you think this is gastric stuff, it ain't.
So you guys were going to go on part 2 of your trip?
Huh?
I thought you guys were on your way home.
No. This was the one I just described is the first part of the trip.
So there's 2. You're going to the second part of the
Yeah,
trip for
right.
sheep.
Yeah. So your question?
No question. I'm just.
Oh, okay,
I just want to make
okay.
sure I'm following you.
Okay.
So
So
you have the
we're
Moffy.
wandering, we're sitting there waiting to fly out. Can't fly out because of fog, this, that. And the night before he flew out, we're in a guide's place, and he's, one of those L-shaped sort of divans. Okay. Wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's going to Roger. I go, what? He says, I'm not feeling good. I'm having a lot of chest pain. And we go over and he's just sweating like crazy. And I said, dude, you're having a freaking heart attack. There's not a goddamn thing I can do about it except to give you some aspirin. And believe me, carry aspirin with you. Okay? So I did. He felt feeling better. Gets up the next morning. Now we're going to fly out. And I said, Jerry, we need to go home. You just had a major heart attack. I didn't. I said, you did. Wouldn't listen to me. We flew out that morning. We flew down to the coast of Sea. The helicopter lands. Everybody gets out. This and that. We might as well fly to the top of the mountains where these guys are getting the camp set up.
So you just had a heart attack. Now you guys are going to fly to the top.
I told him he had a heart attack. He didn't believe me.
And
Okay.
You're the doctor.
Yeah, I'm the doctor. And so we go, he flies up the top of the mountain. You get to the top of the mountain, it's about 100 degrees. It's a thermal inversion, okay? We start looking around.
For those,
the helicopter takes off, goes back to Ohosk, right? We're 150 miles from nearest civilization, okay? These guys are down below when it's 50 degrees, setting up the camp. We look around, we spot these sheep on this mountainside about 3 drainages away. We go across the top, go back, and dude, Jerry's way behind us, okay? We get over there, and we get to the top of these things, and we're above these sheep, and we're looking down at them. It's so steep that the sheep have dug in an area where so they could lay down, okay? I pick out the biggest one, and I shoot it. We're above it, 150 yards, whatever, okay? They all get up, they come, that sheep goes down, the other ones come up and come running right around us, maybe 30 yards away.
Wow.
And I said, Jerry, that one, shoot it. He didn't do anything, right? Okay, and they're gone, right? We go down to my sheep. He said, how come you didn't shoot? Well, I just, this, and he didn't have an answer, right? So we skin out my sheep and this and that, and we have me and him and a Russian guide. And he skins out the sheep, this Russian guy, who doesn't know a word of English. And I go like, how you doing? To Jerry, well, I'm okay. I said, okay, well, I'm thinking, no, he's not okay. So I give him another aspirin. And I said, okay, I don't know, I'm not sure how we're gonna get back to base camp, but we're about 8 miles away. And we have to hike there. Wow. Okay. So we sort of think about, we had a little lunch and this and that, and we get the sheep skinned out. Guy puts it in his backpack. He starts back up the hill. And we're talking about, we're talking about all fours.
It's a steep mountainside
Okay.
where these sheep hang out.
I go like, okay, I guess that's where we're going. So this guy's ahead of us, and he's got a backpack on, and I got a backpack with my rifle. And it's hot. I mean, it's like 90. And I look down,
And you went
Jerry's
from
still
50
packing up
degrees.
his stuff. And
You went from 50 degrees to 90 degrees.
Yeah, thermal inversion.
Yeah.
And so he stops, and I look down, and Jerry's grabbing his stuff and still packing it up. And I look down at him and I go like, Jerry, and I'm not maybe from here to that wall away from him. I says, you know, if anything's going on, if you're not feeling good, you just stop and we'll make sure you get out of here. So, well, last words I ever said to him. This guy turns around and starts hard back up the hill. I don't think I went 10 steps and I hear there's all these rocks tumbling. Look down, here's Jerry rolling down the frickin' hill, okay? I go flying back down there. I did CPR for half an hour. It did.
Oh, man.
And that was maybe that picture that you saw,
The one hanging in here.
10 feet, 15 feet from where we wound up with him dead.
Because you climbed back up and then
Came
rolled
back
down.
and came back down, yeah. Yeah,
So did he die from a heart attack or did he die from the fall?
died from a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I did CPR, did everything. You know, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, no, he was there was no saving him.
Just a massive heart attack.
Yeah, he had a massive heart attack the night before. I tried to convince him to go home the next day, and he wouldn't do it.
So then where did you go from there? So you're on.
Well, where we went from there is I sent the guide back down to the base camp, which is 8 miles away, or 6 or 8 miles away.
And did he understand what happened? Because he was speaking
Yeah,
English.
he did. I mean, he obviously knew the guy was dead, right? I said, you, me, here, okay? So I stayed there all night with the guy. I didn't want to leave him because there was, you know, a lot of bears in the area.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be pretty poor form to leave that situation without a gun, okay? So I stayed there all night with the guy, and the next day they came back up and they had a bunch of people with them, including the police side. And they took me over here and they took the guide over there
no.
they thought we killed the guy, okay? Because he had a big gash on his head, which was not bleeding. Of course, when you're dead, you don't bleed, right?
Yeah.
So we did that and spent a day on the mountain. We had a monster storm come in, and there was like 8 of us camped on the side of a mountain. I'm telling you, it was like that. We were like sardines in this little fucking tent. And we left the body outside in the body bag, which is aluminum, very eerie looking thing. Okay.
And there's one of your best buddies.
Yeah. So, a few days later, we get down, we drag the body down to where we think a helicopter can take it out. Helicopter wouldn't land there. They circle around, don't land. So we got a drainage that goes down of water, like a little creek that goes down there. And we can see the helicopter land down there about 3 miles away below us. And they wouldn't come and land where we were. And so we had, at that point, we had about 5 guys or 6 guys. And we had a young guy who was he was an interpreter of ours. He was like 18 years old, but he spoke English, the only one that did. The other 4 guys, we made a treva and put him on a stretcher, made a stretcher, and it took us a day and a half to get down through that 3-mile stretch because we had to cut the trail, basically. Wow. Get down there. And we get down there, now the helicopter, of course, is gone. And so we hoisted his body up into a tree so the bears wouldn't get him. And we hiked back to camp. Told the helicopter guys, get your ass back up there and pick that body up, okay? Well, understand something. These helicopters are owned by the Russian mafia. You hurt their helicopters, they may hurt you, and that's what they're afraid of.
So the pilots are scared to.
Scared shitless
Yeah.
that something's going to happen to them if they screw up their helicopters. But anyway, we knew they would land the helicopter there, so we went back up there, dropped him out of the box, put him in the helicopter, flew back down to the base camp, back to Petropavlovsk, and we stayed there until the Russian consultant, American consultant came up from Vladivostok, and where's the funeral home? I don't know. Is there a funeral home? I don't know. There are no funeral homes in Eastern Russia. There aren't any.
So what happens?
So they put this guy in a tin can, basically, in a sort of a tin casket, put him in the back of a truck. And so we drive out to the so-called funeral home, and here's this bunch of headstones and stuff in this truck that's sitting there with this casket in it.
So at this point, you're worried about preserving his body and getting.
Well,
it
yeah,
home to
we were
have a
trying to
proper
figure out how to get
funeral,
this
right?
guy back home, and so there are no funeral homes there. Okay, there's not no such thing. Okay, so we wound up taking him back to Moscow and had him cremated and sent him back over to the States. So
How long did that take?
a week.
So did he have family here?
Yeah, he did.
So who made that call?
Me.
What was that like?
Well, I did it on a cell phone with this. Here's the interesting part of this deal. When all this stuff shaked out, and we sent back a.
Do you want some ice in that?
Huh?
Do you want some ice?
No. We sent back a communication to the United States. What came back was Jerry Wendel had died.
Oh, so that confused. Oh,
Oh, nobody knew who died.
and so who did that go to? That go to Maryland?
Huh?
Did Maryland get that?
Marilyn got that message, and of course, she sort of figured out that I didn't die. He did.
How did she come to that conclusion?
I don't know, because I guess I was in better shape. Who fucking knows?
It's so you can say whatever you want on here. The internet has no, what do you call it? No censor bureaus or anything.
Okay, well,
Say whatever you want.
okay, so
But it does go on
no
the
one
internet.
really knew who died for a week.
And you couldn't communicate with anybody. You couldn't
No,
call.
because we were on the side of a freaking mountain for a week.
What was that, the night you spent there?
Huh?
The night that you spent there, what were the...
The night, we spent 7 nights
Well,
there.
the night that you stayed with him after he passed,
Yeah,
when you're on the mountain.
yeah.
what was that night like for you?
I didn't sleep.
Have you seen that movie, The Igor Sanctions, with Clint Eastwood?
No.
Where he's a mountain
I don't
climber
believe
and he's a
so.
spy. There's a scene where, so everyone thinks that there's 4 mountain climbers, and Clint Eastwood is a hired assassin, and he is told that there's another assassin on the team that he has to kill,
Yeah.
but he doesn't know which. Nobody knows
no,
which of the
no,
3.
who it is, yeah.
And so that happens where they're climbing and one guy gets hit in the head with a rock and dies, and they camp overnight on the side of the mountain with the guy that died hanging from the rope. And that's what I picture when we were telling
Okay.
the story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the communication issues were a big problem. Yeah.
So you're in Russia with Jerry cremated, and you can't get on a satellite phone or email or anything and communicate.
No, we
with people here?
communicated via satellite phone, but partially effective, you know. I mean, people not understanding a Russian guy trying to speak English, see what I'm saying? And they had limited power, so they couldn't talk very long, or they'd be cut down.
Yeah, go ahead. Go to the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Okay.
Ryan and I will have
Sorry.
plenty to talk about while you're
Yeah.
gone. So one of the themes that I'm finding, Ryan, is that we get like an hour and a half into it, and we get to the awesome.
Well,
It-
it's interesting parts of whatever the story or a story, or it just gets a little bit deeper and maybe a little off topic, but it's interesting off topic.
You know, relationships are hard because Roger's the most interesting person I know, but it's like Roger's not a celebrity, but it's like if you went out to dinner with Clint Eastwood, would you talk about Clint Eastwood movies all night? No, you wouldn't, because that's the last thing he wants to talk about. So when Roger and I go hunting and fishing, we talk about a lot about business, a lot about family, but 90% of what we're talking about is we're talking about hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
Now, that guy is the most educated salmon fisherman I've ever met, and he's taught me everything I know about salmon fishing, and I think I'm pretty good. So to get the opportunity to ask him some of these questions is good, and you know me. A lot of times you say that I overthink what people think about me, but I'm very careful what I say because I don't want to rub people the wrong way, and so I've never really asked Roger too much. So I've always wanted to hear this story, and
That's a
This
that's a
version of the
mind-blowing
story-
story. Is crazy.
the version of the story is nothing like any version I've heard from other people secondhand. The cause of death is different. The country of origin's been different. Like, I've kind of repeated parts of the story and people ask, and it's totally wrong. It's like that telephone game.
Just being out in the wild is one thing. Being so far from any civilization, on a mountainside, alone, not even knowing if people are coming back for you. Did those thoughts enter your mind as you're sitting there with Jerry? Jerry's
No,
deceased.
I was thinking it was that there may be bears showing up, and there were a lot of bears. We were just above
Grizzly
timberline.
bears. They're
Yeah,
grizzly bears, right?
these were grizzly bears. Yeah, there's a lot in the area. A lot, big
Wow.
population.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking there I'm gonna have to sit here and defend the body from the bears.
And it had to be emotional.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. My initial feeling was sort of pissed off at Jerry
For being so
because
stubborn.
he didn't listen to me. I told him, you had a major heart attack. We need to go home. But you wouldn't listen. I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to hike up this freaking mountain. Really? See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was pissed. I was mad at that body who was laying up on the ground. Pissed his pants, shit his butt,
Yeah.
Here he is, dead on a stump, and he's on a hill I can hardly stand up on, let alone,
Was this hunt you guys went on? I don't mean any disrespect by this.
No, that's okay.
Was this like Patagonia for me when we go to Jurassic Lake?
No.
No. Let me finish what I'm saying. When we go to Jurassic Lake, for my lifetime so far, that's a once in a lifetime hunt.
Gotcha.
For Jerry, was this a once in a lifetime hunt?
No,
Or-
we've hunted some. Yeah, no, it was not.
So it wasn't like he had saved his life savings to go
No,
on this
not
hunt,
at all.
and he wasn't going to give
no,
up.
it was
'cause, yeah.
we done sheep hunts together and all other kinds of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't.
So, you guys made it home?
Yeah. We flew home, and interestingly enough, when we flew home, somebody else on the plane had a cardiac event, and we had to land in Finland.
Oh my god! You're like,
That's not funny.
no. You're
Drag
like,
his ass off the frickin' plane.
you're like, no more heart attacks.
That's, that's an amazing story. That's totally different than the version I had kind of heard or thought I heard or whatever.
I don't know. What did you hear?
It doesn't even. It's,
Well, Cody said it's like the telephone game. You know, it just each version gets a little bit different.
I heard that.
You heard this is the real version, okay?
I'm glad I heard it because I think there's a lot to take away from that story.
Well, what is here? This is what's to take away from this story.
Listen to your dentist.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I said you just had a major cardiac event here. No, I didn't. I said no, you didn't. We need to go home now. And we've been on a hold for 5 days. He couldn't walk 15 feet without having to rest. I said, dude, you're in trouble here. We need to go home.
Why didn't he go home?
He just, I don't know.
Just stubbornness or
Stubbornness, yeah.
excitement or
Stubbornness. And then when he had that major event, which I told you about, he woke me up, and as I've had this, I'm going, he's diaphoretic, and then going, his heart rate is like in the freaking stratosphere. And I said, dude, you're in serious trouble here. We need to go home. And I gave him the aspirin, settled everything down, felt pretty good the next morning. I said, Jerry, we need to leave. Abandon the hunt, go home. He wouldn't do it.
so. If you and I are in Patagonia, can you put yourself in his shoes, or would you be like, "Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here"?
No, because it's a whole different deal, okay? We're in Patagonia. We're in a lodge. You have communication.
All right, well, let's say if the roles were reversed, could you understand him not wanting to?
No, actually, I couldn't because I think he was pretty stubborn.
Was that his personality in general?
Yeah, that's actually what attracted him to me. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. At that point in time, I go like, God, look at how life like Jerry does. He does everything he wants to whenever he wants to, and he's still working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What did he do for work? Can I ask that?
He was a landscaping architect. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about you and Dirk and Steve Simpson and William. You know, as I look up to you guys, as look at these guys working hard, uber successful, and look at the adventures and the fishing and the freedoms and they have, and over the last few years, Roger, it's really motivated me.
Well, I'm glad it's been a positive thing in your life.
Absolutely. All you guys, you and Dirk especially. I mean, I'm very proud to have you guys as friends. So,
Well, thank you.
well, I'm kind of like I'm not an emotional guy, but it's kind of an emotional story. It's what I'm going to think about for a long time.
Yeah, and yeah, I think of the stupidity that I showed. I should have just taken him by the neck. He said, "No,
Yeah.
we're going."
I'm going home. You can go
Yeah,
home by yourself.
I mean, that's no sheep in there doesn't mean shit to me. Okay, I mean, I killed a nice time. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's my buddy. And like I said before, all this stuff has really little to do with other than the experience. And being with friends or not friends or just being by yourself and being in, camping out in the wilderness. And how many people get to do that anymore? Nobody.
How many people get off the couch, turn off the TV, take their weekend and go do something? Very little.
Yeah.
Very little.
I guess I'm just the opposite. I mean, I just, sitting around while I hold my deck down doesn't do it for me.
I think that's why we're friends.
Yeah.
Well, let's end on one positive note because this is a hunt. You know what? Look at this title, The Hunt for Success. I think we covered both ends of that
I
spectrum,
think we have.
right? I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yes.
What's the correlation between the success you've had in hunting and the financial and business success you've had?
Wow. That's a good question. I think the quest for the it's the quest. It's the quest. It's the quest for whatever it is. It's the unachievable or the achievable. Yeah, I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think the way you described it's perfect.
Yeah. That's a good question. I look at these sheep mounts and stuff here and I go like, that was a quest. I achieved it. Or I didn't achieve it. But it's still a quest.
And going back to what we talked about, mentorship and accountability, you didn't have anybody holding your hand, helping you achieve these goals of these animals, just like you did in your business.
No,
And
that's a
I've
good
always
point.
wondered what you kind of the value you had in this place. Did it have some significance in your success and hunting and your business? And I think you just kind of answered that.
Yeah, I think sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I'm going to end, Ryan. You got anything? I know I hear you over there.
No, it's just been it's been a pleasure. It's been fun to hear some of your stories. I mean, we could go on for hours. I know we could.
Actually, we could.
We could. and so here's the deal. So we're going to wrap it up, but I want to have you back on.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can include some other guests. Maybe when William's here, I'd love to hear about his business
yeah.
success. And we could meet together. Now that you kind of know the format. And Roger, I'm proud to call you my friend. And thanks everyone for listening.
And thank you for letting us host our podcast here. It's
Absolutely.
absolutely
Thank you very
amazing.
much.
The famous Roger Wendel.
I'm going to do what everyone says to do. Subscribe to the Hunt for Success podcast. Be a subscriber. You'll be notified on future episodes.
Share
I
it.
hope you guys like it. Share it. Give us feedback. Post comments. We are rookies. We're developing it. So your feedback's appreciated. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Dude, good job, Roger.